Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Tesla Owners UK virtual event during COVID, which we are trying to fill the gap that everyone is desperate for human interaction. So we've got another awesome evening tonight on this. It was like quite a nice, a bit cold, I suppose, today compared to last time. But a nice Thursday evening. We've got a very special guest, Beth Lily Giorgio, coming in all the way from Belgium at the moment. So I'll introduce you now. Get you on screen. Hey, Beth, how are you?
Hi, Will. I'm good, thank you.
Good, awesome. Very good, thank you, very good. So you've driven 6,000 miles in a Tesla Roadster. You've co-run a new electric vehicle Formula Championship. You also run an educational EV workshop, and you're a big EV enthusiast. Is that sort of about right?
Yeah, that's better than I would put it myself, so thank you.
Awesome. So could you give us a brief history of sort of your excitement for EVs, where that came from, and also some of your EV past vehicles?
Yeah, so my excitement for EVs really started when in a previous job, I used to manage a educational program called Formula Student, which is a big engineering competition held at Silverstone every year, where universities design and build their own race cars. They can choose if they build a combustion car or an electric car, and they compete against each other with a separate class for each one, for combustion and with electrics. They don't actually race at the same time because they're very kind of prototype cars, so there's safety issues around just putting those wheel to wheel. But when I was working there, we were seeing the electric cars, obviously the performance just smashing the combustion cars out of the park. And I think about that time, it was when Tesla started to be a brand that anybody, especially in the UK, was vaguely aware of. And it just, I think I had like a light bulb moment at that point and knew that electric cars were performing better in those circumstances, and they were the future, really. So that was what kicked it off. But I'd been working in motorsport for a while, and I always say how it was interesting that I would feel quite poorly working on track, especially like the first couple of weekends working on track before my body had adjusted probably to the negative aspects of motorsport, like the particulates from tires and the fumes from the cars. But because I was kind of a young woman in the field, I didn't really want to tell people about how bad it made me feel physically at the time. So I just kind of toughed it out. But I guess I joined the dots when I started seeing electric race cars built by universities and thought, actually, this solves a lot of problems. I was already very aware of the climate, long-term vegetarian and vegan, so I was very conscious of the environment, and I just joined all the dots all at once. It was a cool moment. So I realized that was kind of going to be my life.
Awesome. And what was your first experience of driving an electric vehicle?
I don't even know. That's a really good question. I don't know. I mean,
another question then. What was the first
That's
EV
really bad,
that
isn't it? I should know.
you owned and drove?
The first EV that I owned was a BMW i3, and I loved it. I'm still a huge fan of the i3. It was fantastic. I had two different BMW i3s over the years, and yeah, it was a beautiful car. And I'm thinking the first EV I must have driven must have been the Model S, but yeah, I think it should have stuck in my memory more, but it clearly hasn't. I think I was so ingrained in motorsport and so accustomed to experiencing the electric cars on the track that's really the EV defining moment for me, is really rooted in motorsport.
Awesome.
I do like Teslas more, though, obviously. I drive a Tesla now, but you've got to start somewhere. Come on.
And you drove a Roadster for. Sorry, someone's just come up. But you like Teslas more, Beth.
Yeah.
So you drove the Tesla Roadster for quite a while. Is that alongside that? How did that come about? Did you love it? Did you hate it?
I loved it. Absolutely. I still love it. unfortunately, having no power steering, and I have a shoulder injury now. So driving the Roadster or Roadsters in general nowadays is for long periods of time isn't easy. Unfortunately, it's kind of a long-term problem now. But I love it. I don't know anyone that can get the range out of a Roadster that I can get. That's my bragging rights. I've got phenomenal amounts of range out of the Roadster. I think it's so much fun. It's a little bit nuts as well. It feels a little bit dangerous. I've had some really hairy moments in the Roadster, but that kind of adds to the fun of it. I love the fact that it was the original thing that made Tesla, even though I know that obviously nowadays it's kind of slightly ignored a little bit because it doesn't have the same styling and the cool looks of the newer Teslas. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of the original Roadster. I mean, I can't wait for the new Roadster though. Probably like that one even more.
Yeah, it looks pretty awesome. So did you make any adjustments to the Roadster or any of your other cars, updates, changes, or were they sort of pretty stock?
The Roadster was really stock. There were some really makeshift adjustments we made on the road for the really long journey. We didn't do anything to adapt for the charging because there are various things you can get, like aftermarket kits, etc. But I just used about 6 different charging cables and the CAN converter you can get to convert it into the Type 2. But we did on the road do a lot of motorsport style aero updates because there's quite a lot of holes and things on there that you can get a few extra kilometers out if you tape everything up. So we did do some kind of stupid road updates, but nothing real update wise. And on my Model S currently, I think the only update I have is Chrome Delete because I'm vain.
Fair enough. So you referenced the distance. Could you give a bit of information about where that Arctic Circle trip came from, how that came about, and also maybe touch on sort of how far you did manage to push that car?
Yeah, so it came about originally back to the BMW. I was working with BMW I, and they kind of challenged me to do some crazy journeys in a BMW i3. This was very, very early days where they were still researching the vehicle themselves. I was doing some journalism on it. It was kind of before doing crazy EV adventures was really a mainstream thing. It was just kind of a few of us weird people doing them. So I'd done a few with the i3 and wanted to take it further. And I remember a group of friends were looking at the Tesla charger map, and we saw how the chargers just reached all the way up to the top of Norway. And we were like, that would make a great road trip. And I think about a year later, we actually started putting some real research into it because it was just initially like a pub chat sort of situation. And yeah, we realized that somebody, a couple of Norwegians at least, and I think a UK person had already done the journey. So we were like, well, someone's already done it. We need to make it more difficult. So we decided to try and take 4 different cars up there, which was really difficult because obviously one car can charge, but if you've got 4 different cars with all different charging needs and different ranges, to try and stay together in a group becomes really difficult. And of course, to do it with the Roadster as well, which is difficult to charge. The Roadster infrastructure is not there anymore. It doesn't charge on the superchargers. It would definitely be a challenge. So that was where it came about. So we drove from Bristol in the UK all the way to Nordkapp, which is the northernmost point in Europe, and it was 10,000 kilometers, so about 6,000 miles, and took us, I think, close to 40 days to do there and all the way back. Wow,
that's so awesome. And what year was that?
I think it was 2016. It was, 5 years ago now, a really long time ago. 2016-ish, roughly. Yeah, it was really exciting. We made the whole journey about kind of sustainability. So we visited a lot of companies on the way. We visited various automotive brands as well as kind of sustainable industry, and we had a few joiners that joined for legs of the road trip, actually mainly from various Tesla owners clubs up in Sweden and Norway, and that was really fun because they obviously took us to the most scenic roads and let us really enjoy the cars and just enjoy the driving experience. And I have to say, I need to go back to Norway. I keep saying this every year because the driving in Norway was one of the best experiences I've ever had. And I was driving the Roadster about 90% of the whole journey. So it was really, really fun to at least have the top down, because it was 10 degrees hotter than the average climate for the time, which was in the summer in Norway. So it was beautiful, sunny, lots of reindeer everywhere, really, really picturesque.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we've got lots of Tesla owners that are desperate to do that trip, myself included.
Yeah, do it.
Like you, I was desperate to do it. 5 years ago, never did it. So yeah, I need to do that. And do you think that journey today would be easier? In two parts of that, I guess. One is in a Roadster ? And then the next part is in, say, a Model 3 ?
Well, the real challenge that we had with the journey is we did it with the Roadster, we did it with the Model S, we did it with the BMW i3, and we did it with the 30 kilowatt old style Nissan Leaf. So, the Leaf was starting to overheat by the end. The i3 doesn't have a huge amount of range. The Model S obviously was essentially the support car that had all the tents and the cooking equipment, etc., because we did everything kind of off grid. And well, the Roadster was just like my own little mission, really. I had to put in more driving and more charging hours than the other cars, because I needed to kind of get ahead in time so I could then charge really, really slowly while everyone else caught up. So it's kind of difficult to say whether it would be the same now. And I'm not up to date with what the infrastructure looks like, but I'm assuming 5 years later, it's even better. But if you did it in the Model S, it would be a breeze. It already was very easy for the Model S 5 years ago. And that was 85, an old 85. So yeah, you'd be fine in a Model 3. There's superchargers all the way up now.
Awesome. Do you think that's your most favourite road trip, or has there been one that's better?
Yeah, I think nothing will beat Norway. It was just so incredibly beautiful, and to do it in the Roadster and to have a silent car. I'm actually not a fan of the convertible in general in cars, but the silent car with the top down, kind of being part of nature. There were moose out there that weren't disturbed by us. The reindeer, I think I've posted videos on social media of the reindeer just walking in front of me. They didn't get out of the way, but it was lovely. I think every drive in nature should have to be electric. I just think it should have to be. Then we don't disturb nature. We get to kind of be part of it. So it was really special. I've had some really incredible road trip moments in Switzerland as well. I think probably we can tell there's a theme with what kind of scenery I like. For me, I would really, really like to do an electric road trip in Cyprus, because as you can tell from my surname, I've got a Cypriot heritage. So I'd be really keen to go there, and probably that could be the one to beat Norway. But I don't know, it's not a very big country, so probably I couldn't do anything too dramatic on the range there.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been similar ones. The Swiss Alps we've done the club have done sort of one with that, and it is pretty awesome. Yeah, so it's one to look at.
Oh, I did forget, I've done Australia and New Zealand as well. They probably deserve an honourable mention. Actually, Australia is probably the most mental road trip I've ever done, because I crossed the entire continent of Australia with 2 colleagues collecting data for building solar cars. And yeah, we were all British and we'd never been to Australia before. So I think that was nuts. That was absolutely nuts to drive through the outback.
I love that you forgot about that.
Yeah, I know. It's really bad. Everything. I think everything. I seem to have forgotten all the good things. But yeah, Australia was incredible. yeah, the outback was mental. Like it was another planet. I remember the first place we arrived, we drove on the first day, we drove about 1,500 kilometers in it. We drove from Darwin then into the kind of the middle of nowhere. And we arrived and we'd promised on the first day of driving that we would all call our parents and our friends and our partners and whatever. And we arrived at this, I don't want to say town because it wasn't a town, like a hotel in the middle of nowhere, a motel. And went to ask where the nearest phone reception was because we had no signal, and the Australian guy behind the counter just said like 300 kilometers that way. And obviously all our family were then worried, and we were like, wow, we're really not in the UK anymore.
Awesome. So we're going to move on to sort of motorsport stuff now. Where did your love for motorsport come from? Was it from a really early age? I know you lived sort of near to Silverstone. Was that sort of part of it?
Yeah, I mean, I live near you, Will. So yeah, Silverstone is pretty close by. It was near to school. It became something I was interested in. I think also it was when I was a teenager, it was one of those things that normally young girls weren't interested in, which automatically gave it appeal to me because I was like, oh, okay, if there's not many girls, then I want to challenge the status quo and go and do something there just to be difficult, because that's the kind of teenager I was. And yeah, it kind of just happened, and I started to really enjoy it. I actually I was more of a touring cars fan than an F1 fan, although I can't deny I'm not an F1 fan. But yeah, tin top racing was always exciting for me. It was kind of fast paced and action and a bit messy, a bit less perfect, I suppose. So that was really what kicked things off for me, and it was a good kind of secondary job at the time while I was a student, to come back and do some racing weekends, etc. And yeah, it kind of went from there.
Awesome. And how can children, teenagers, in your opinion, best get involved with motorsport in general, and also a side part of that, in EV motorsport in general?
Yeah, that's it's a really important topic at the moment because often when we talk about getting involved in motorsport, everyone automatically thinks of how to become a racing driver. But realistically, most of the jobs in motorsport are not being a racing driver. It's just kind of the one that's seen as being the coolest and the one that comes with, I guess, celebrity status if you're in the higher tiers of motorsport. But one of the things that I love about motorsport is that it is an incredible testing bed for technology. The technology that goes into our road cars, that's often tested on the track first. That's a place to experiment. You get quantifiable competitive results with your technology, which is a thing I love. You put your motor in this car and it goes faster than all the other cars. It's running more efficiently than all the other cars. You know that your motor is good, right? It's a really easy way to test yourself against the competition. So in terms of young people getting involved, there's a real strong link to STEM education. And as every country is aware, there's a real STEM shortage, and a lot of young people are being encouraged to undertake in STEM education subjects. So one of the things we do with the championship is run a program for schools where we help them to design and build little electric buggy vehicle car things that they can then race at quite slow speeds, but it gives them the first taste of teamwork and being engineers, and also marketing themselves. They can go get sponsors as a team. There's a whole package around motorsport that's outside of driving, whether you're going to be a PR person or a marketeer or an engineer or a mechanic. There's so much more that needs to be part of the narrative when we're talking about getting young people involved.
Awesome. So you touched on, am I right in thinking it's called ERA Cup?
Yeah, it's our school program. So I mean, it's not actually just for schools. We do have a few adults that build them in their garages, which I love. I think it's amazing, especially if you want to do a kind of fun project that you've maybe never worked on an actual car before. It's something a little bit more manageable because it's essentially like a kit with instructions. So it's very easy for you to do that, and all the battery side of things is at a safe level where you can't go wrong with it. Whereas if you were dealing with full-size car level batteries, obviously there's a lot of safety implications involved. So basically, students age 14 and up can build these. They normally make a little racing team in school and get sponsors like local companies involved. And at the end of the year, there's a race, but obviously due to COVID last year, that was unable to happen, unfortunately. But we're hoping that we can do a race with them this year, fingers crossed. So it's a program that actually runs all around the world as well. So we kind of work with local licensees that make sure that the program can be delivered in the right language to people, to the kids in that country. But it's really nice. There's so many kids now that are passionate about electric cars. I mean, you notice that driving in the Tesla, probably everyone here notices that the kids point at the Tesla and not the supercars anymore. I guess the Tesla is a supercar as well, but they point at the Tesla and not the Lamborghini, which is kind of a cool place for the world to be, right?
It is, yes. So two questions now. How can Tesla owners get involved in that ERA Cup? Is there sort of volunteer positions to help out or is it very much, just pushing kids towards these, or schools towards the sort of the website to sign up?
Yeah, good question. There certainly will be volunteer opportunities for the race events, but obviously with the COVID situation at the moment, I don't know when that will be, but definitely keep an eye out on that. But the main thing is getting the word out that it's something that you can do in school. It doesn't have to be in school. It makes sense to do it in school because it can be part of a curriculum. In fact, some countries over here in the Benelux region are working to integrate it into the curriculum, which is really, really cool. But it's open for schools to run, or even if you just wanted to do it yourself because you're stuck at home and you want a garage project with your kid for the summer, that's possible too. Or you're an adult, that's also possible. We do have, as I said before, we do have some adults that like to do it. You can fit a fully sized tall human like me in it. I'm tall and I have extra room. The tallest guy in our office can fit in it. So there's no real difficulty with squishing an adult into the car.
Awesome. So you touched on earlier being, a young female involved in motorsport was sort of not something that happened very often. Do you have any suggestions for the young females that are watching this now, in particular, how they can go ahead into the industry with the excitement that they obviously would have?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing you can do is just go for it, really. I can't pretend like it's always going to be easy. I think it's a lot better maybe in the last few years than it has been. But motorsport has got a lot of problems, a lot of issues in diversity in general. I think a lot of them are being discussed at the moment, but not really addressed, which is also not really helpful. But at least people are becoming aware of the issues and trying to find solutions to solve it. But the great thing is the women that you do meet in motorsport now are highly supportive, and there's a lot of groups out there and societies and organizations you can join as a young woman in motorsport, where you can get support from your peers or from older women in the sport. And it's from that side of things, there's a lovely community. So if it's something you're really passionate about, you just have to fight to be there, because it's not necessarily always going to be easy, and you're going to have to put up with some difficult conversations at times from people that are not prepared to watch things change. I mean, it's the same thing with electric motorsports. I have a lot of conversations with diehard petrol heads on a daily basis that refuse to acknowledge electric motorsport as valid or a sport, but it's just people are afraid of change, and people are afraid of talented young women sometimes in the sport. So you just have to stand your ground and seek support from other women.
Awesome. And what were your thoughts on Extreme E in the last week? Did you manage to watch any of
I did. I caught some over the weekend. I didn't see all the qualification, but I caught the crazy race. But I was really happy when they announced maybe even 2 years ago that they were doing 50-50 gender in the grid. So that's I think that's really positive, and the way they've done it means that there's no kind of segregation. It's a great. I mean, to be honest, my feelings on the matter is the more women we get in the car proving themselves, proving they deserve to be there, then the better it will be. And hey, Molly Raleigh, I only know her Twitter name. She won, so she beat everyone.
Exactly, yeah, and Katie Mullings
awesome.
as well, which is Katie Mullings has taken me out in a Tesla and shown me how to drive properly, and she knows what she's doing. She did really well as well. The puncher that was her whole lap. Awesome. Let's go briefly back to the ERA Championship, which has got a similar name, but it is completely different. Can you explain just exactly what that is and how that works, and then go from there?
Yeah, so it's the big sibling of the Cup, and it's really our flagship product. But it's an entry-level single-seater, so Formula-style electric racing championship. So there's nothing at the moment in that sphere in motorsports. Obviously, with Formula One, you've got a clear kind of career ladder tier: Formula 4, Formula 3, Formula 2, Formula One. But in electric motorsport, because it's relatively new, we've only really built the kind of top tier motorsport, like Formula E and Extreme E, and a few others that are just emerging now, like ETCR, etc. So our goal was to help the electric motorsport career ladder develop by creating an accessible entry-level Formula series, essentially, which is in combustion racing. Formula 4 is where most of the young kids that driving come out of karting and take their first steps to racing an actual car. So it's a kind of a crucial moment in the motorsport the motorsport career, because it's your kind of initial time in the car. So we have developed our own electric race car called the Mitsubishi F1110, and it's based on the Dome Formula 4 chassis. So it's a Japanese chassis that we have then modified to be electric rather than a Formula 4 combustion vehicle. So we've designed our own sub-chassis and built in our own battery and motor, etc. And so we were due to start racing at the end of last year, but that was a little bit delayed thanks to COVID. So, and things, we're still in a lockdown here in Belgium at the moment. Actually, I know the UK is opened up a little bit, but we're due to start a small local season in autumn of this year, and then next year we have a full summer racing season in Europe, and also a driver boot camp for aspiring electric racing drivers taking place in the States in January and February. So that's normally the time when in Europe you can't do racing because of the weather. So that's kind of a 4-week program for young drivers. And yeah, we're hoping to help generate future talent and grow electric motorsport. So it's really exciting. It's a good time right now.
Awesome. And can you explain how does someone get into that sport? So say myself and I've got a couple of drivers that we want to go in and jump into the sport. How does a team approach and do that? Do we buy the cars? Do we build the cars from scratch? How does that work?
So there's a few different ways. With the championship itself, and by the championship I mean the season of racing professional racing that will take place in Europe, not the driver training program that we're running in the States. There's two ways that teams can enter. They can either enter with what we call sports class, or they can enter with innovation class. So sports class is a spec race car that we completely build, and it gets delivered and it drives. There's nothing you have to do as a team other than set up and the normal racing things. With the innovation class, this is for development. So this is where it appeals to electric mobility industry, motor designing companies and building companies, or battery designing and building companies. They can self-develop elements of the car, but they do that alongside us, so we know exactly what's inside the car, to a set of regulations, to make everything safe. In terms of, if you're not a racing team or you're not an industry, there's plenty of ways you can get involved if you want to drive. It's the same as if you wanted to get involved in combustion racing. You come to us, or you come to a race team and say that you want to become a driver, and then you need to raise your sponsorship to do your season, to pay your mechanics and to pay your season entry fees, etc. But there's quite a lot of exciting different ways and accessible ways for people to get involved, because we have these two classes. So it means that if you've got a load of tech and you would love to put your tech in motorsport, but as we know, electric vehicles is a early stage evolving industry, and although there are some huge big players, there's a lot of startups and small to medium sized enterprises, so they may not be able to compete or to put money into top tier, very, very expensive multi-million-pound motorsport. So that's why we're a great platform for those companies to test out their equipment. And the same with drivers as well. We can cater to young drivers that are looking to eventually end up in Formula E or Extreme E, but also to an enthusiast that doesn't have the kind of budget or the kind of skills to ever race in top tier motorsport.
Awesome. And I'm going to ask the very boring questions of how big's the battery and how far do they drive?
So we run sprint races. They're 23 minutes plus 1 lap, and our battery is 24 kilowatt hours. So you can run pretty much exactly the race. We do 2 races every race weekend, and therefore 2 qualification sessions. And the qualification sessions are 15 minutes each, and they're run back to back, and you're not allowed to charge between those. So that adds a little bit of element of strategizing with your qualification sessions, because you can't just run fast lap after fast lap for the 2 15-minute qualification sessions, because your battery in theory shouldn't last that long. So if you're running at full race speed, then your battery lasts about 24 minutes.
Awesome.
But we have driven it for about an hour or so, quite slowly, to film some footage. So it depends what you're doing with it. But we normally talk about race speed. We're built to be entirely comparable to Formula 4 levels of performance. We're a little bit faster in terms of top speed and a little bit faster in terms of acceleration, but we're not able to build a car that is faster than Formula 4, because then the chassis is not safe and not homologated for that level of performance. And again, it's designed to be a first step in the career or for enthusiasts. So it's not designed to be the fastest car out there. It's designed to be kind of affordable and accessible and a career starter. But saying that, I mean, anybody that drives a single-seater electric car is going to have a lot of fun, and its top speed is 210 kilometers per hour. So I don't think anyone's going to be complaining.
Awesome. And so why 24? It sounds like an old Leaf battery. That was my original.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's not. I don't think it would fit. Our batteries are actually, we do everything in house, and we have a partner for components. But I think, I assume, I am not the technical director and I don't look after the technical decisions, but I assume it was just the smallest amount of battery we could put in the car, because obviously we don't want to make the car too heavy, and it's the car's 650 kilograms, including driver, which is a light car. So it was probably the minimum battery we could have and run the race, I would say.
Awesome. And you explained that you're not the technical director. So could you explain maybe your title and position and what you actually do in the championship?
Yeah, so I look after sporting, and I'm also looking after communications at the moment. So in terms of what I do, I look after all the racing drivers and the race teams and our racing calendar and the circuits and all of that stuff, and organise the track safety, marshals, clerks, stewards, that kind of thing. And then once we're actually racing, I'll be the person in race control, directing everything, because really race direction is my area of expertise, along with electric car safety, marshal training, equipping circuits with the right things they need to deal with electric cars, that kind of thing, and general overall strategy inside the business. The technical team and I obviously work pretty closely together, and I have had some important says like naming the car and choosing the color of the car, but when it comes to actually what's inside the car, there's much better people equipped to make those decisions than I am, that are actually engineers.
Awesome. So we've got a couple of questions coming in. We've realised our YouTube comments aren't coming through to us, so Josh is putting them in the chat to us. Oz has said, "Can I have a go in the single-seater?"
I think Oz always asks that, right? We're not doing any test drives at the moment because we're still stuck in COVID, but it's something we will be doing in the future. So yeah, just keep bugging our social media intern, and I'm sure it will happen at one point.
Awesome. Next question is from Andy. Do you have a favourite supercar? And it doesn't have to be electric on that one, but.
Well, you know, the funny thing is, when I first started working in motorsport, and I got my job in Formula Student, and I was working in London, I had to give an interview and talk about my dream car, and I said Tesla Model S, and I think the closest I had got to a Tesla Model S at the time, because this would have really been a long time ago, a really long time ago, was they had them in pop-up shops in Westfields, in White City, I think, in London. And I'd seen one and worked out what it was and just fallen in love. And then I remember I was looking for a car for myself. And I remember looking at Teslas. And I mean, at the time I was looking for basically a cheap hatchback. And I was looking at Teslas and thinking, oh, maybe I can have a Tesla. And then I actually looked at Teslas and I'm like, no, you're not getting a Tesla. Yeah, we're going to have to start saving if you want a Tesla. So it really started all the way back then. And I think I even recently dug out that interview, and I thought it's amazing, really, because years and years ago I was saying that my dream car was a Model S, and now I drive one. And it's so cool. I never thought that was going to happen. I literally jumped on that car when I saw it. I knew that car was special. So I'd say a Model S, really. I've got some old classic favorites, and I've been really lucky enough to experience the Jaguar E-Type 0, which is possibly the coolest electric car.
Ooh, that is awesome.
Yeah, that was really, really cool. And I experienced it before it became, was it the royal wedding car or something? Because then it got like too hard to handle, I think. I don't think anyone got to experience them after that. But yeah, I got the full experience at Jaguar Classic, and that was stunning, because I know some people think it's sacrilegious, but that car being silent, like the classic, the elegance of the E-Type, and then the silence driving through like the country roads around Coventry. It was that was surreal. So probably I would never want a combustion car. Now it feels like going backwards.
Perfect answer. Yeah. Very jealous of that. I didn't realise that was a thing. Next one is from Planet Cypher. Does Beth love music or motor racing the most? I think clearly he's looked behind and seen some keyboards.
Yeah. Well, it's a difficult question considering my audience. It's put me in an awkward place. I'm a musician at heart. I think one of the reasons I like electric cars is because it's better to listen to my music in. I studied music. I'm a composer, a violinist, a saxophonist, and a keyboard player. And music's been part of my life since I was really small. So it's possibly the most important thing in my life, I would say, is music. But motorsport's pretty high up there, and electric cars are a strong passion. But I couldn't live without music. So I think I have to say music, but I realize that I'm going to get abused now.
You saved it because you said you're listening in your electric car makes it.
Yeah. Also, the Tesla sound system upgrade is the best sound system in a car. I will not hear anyone say differently. The BMW i3 Harman Kardon system is good, but Tesla is hands down the best car for listening. And when you're a composer or a producer, the ultimate test of your mix is to listen to it in the car, and to do that in the Tesla is, like, there is nothing better. So I wouldn't be surprised if all the fancy LA music producers are all buying Teslas just purely to listen to their mixes.
and the new Tesla Model S and Model X has got even more speakers in
I
it.
know.
So
Yeah, I know. And I have the old one, and I'm a little bit jealous of that, but it's not really worth the trading of unlimited free supercharging. So
yeah, that's a good point. Perfect. So we've got more questions. If anyone else has any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll have some more time in a sec to go through those and answer those. Just as a brief pause, though, if you are watching and you're not subscribed, I'm told by my trusty Josh in my ear that you need to subscribe, because we need as many subscribers as possible, and also to thank Beth for her time. Please go and follow Beth on Twitter as well, because she's doing it just for the love of EVs and all sorts. I've got another question here. What is the race speed? I presume that's of the championship.
That's a good question. I mean, it depends what circuit you're racing on. I'm not entirely sure what they mean. I mean, the top speed is 210, as I said before. But yeah, it depends on your circuit, really.
Okay, we need Josh to go back and ask more questions on that.
Yeah, be more specific.
Be more specific. Why do you think no one makes a proper EV driver's car yet, like a 7 Radical or Elise? I would love a proper track-focused EV.
Yeah, well, I guess the Roadster was the Elise, wasn't it? I think probably a little bit to do with supply and demand, and I suppose the people that are mostly buying track-focused cars are often the last people to adopt the EV lifestyle. I mean, I certainly noticed that in the motorsport world, but I don't know. It's a good question. I also gather that those companies are probably that make those cars the ones that are going to struggle the most with switching over. Because they're smaller budget companies, and if we've seen some of the heritage automakers make an absolute joke of their electric offerings or their electric promises, haven't we? So I suppose it's changing your whole business and convincing your board that that's a good idea, and a lot of them might be not appreciative of that change. I think we all come across quite a lot of anti-EVers and know how unpersuadable they can be. So yeah, there's obviously also, I mean, when it comes to building a track car, you've got to think about a lot of other elements as well. So it's going to be more expensive because you have to think about how you're keeping it cool. You can't really even I can't really drive my S around the track a lot without it getting unhappy. Obviously the 3 is now in performance mode. That's a great track car. But for our car, we do have to think about cooling, not as much as you would think actually, because Formula cars are obviously designed in a specific way. But yeah, I think, there's cost involved, there's weight involved. Those things tend to be pretty light. So how many batteries are you going to put in before the car's getting very heavy? Where are you gonna put them? Because obviously it's most efficient. You can build a more efficient in terms of weight ratio car with an electric car, because if you put the batteries in the base. But if you're going with an old chassis and kind of replacing where you would want the engine to be, then you're kind of building it very inefficiently. So yeah, I would say it's just early days, really. We'll just have to see what happens, and things are going to get cheaper, things are going to become more innovative, and things are going to become more readily available. But one of the things we'll be doing with our race cars is making them available to tracks as experience cars, because the real benefit of giving an electric car to a track as an experience car is that you can very easily adjust the power with software rather than mechanical things. So it means you could have absolutely complete novices in the car getting an experience. Like they have obviously those kind of things in circuits in the UK and over here as well and around the world, where they use very, very old, low power, kind of in bad nick formula cars, and you can have a lap of Stowe Circuit at Silverstone or something. You can do that very easily with an electric car because you can just power it down depending on the skills of the driver. So yeah, it will get there.
Awesome. And you briefly touched on charging of the ERA cars and how you weren't allowing them between races. How does that work? Is that just a sort of three-phase power into them, or is it more complex?
They're allowed to charge between races, but they're not allowed to charge between the 15-minute qualification sessions. And it's slightly mean on our part in order to try and make them think a little bit about their strategy, and in order to mix the grid up a little bit for the races, because that makes things more interesting from a sporting perspective, and it involves them using a little bit of thought as to where they're going to place their fast laps within those two qualification sessions. In terms of charging for the races, we actually charge the cars in a multitude of different ways depending on the circuits. Obviously, most circuits in Europe have got a lot of power, so it's not really a problem to charge them. The teams are given charging slots where they need to bring the cars to a certain area, and the charging is done with our kind of specialist personnel and expertise, and the battery is removable for that so that they can continue working on the car, because otherwise they're losing valuable time if they need to make adjustments on the car. But we can charge at various speeds depending on the circuit. We can charge really, really super quick in say half an hour, but that's not always necessary. We don't always want to charge them as fast as possible because there's no point doing that and pulling that charge if you don't need to, so we can charge slower as well. It just really depends how it fits into the race weekend and what the circuit's got. And some circuits, if we look further afield, we do have plans to race in other continents. They might not have the power required, and then we will be bringing our own energy with us, but that will always be batteries that we can bring onto site rather than any kind of generators, because that's something that a lot of people make assumptions with electric motorsport. So we are absolutely against having that, because it's just not the press that we want, and it's not the message we want, and it's not the point of what we're doing. So.
And have you looked at some of the AFC energy stuff that was charging the Extreme E, hydrogen powered? I guess you call them generators.
Yeah, no, we haven't. We haven't, because Extreme E has a very specific niche requirement in that they're trying to charge their cars in the middle of nowhere, and we don't have that problem. So it's not really something that we found as a requirement. The worst case scenario from us is we have a solution of batteries that are brought on site with a truck, and we can charge those batteries up using literal clean energy from solar or from wind turbines, and bring that energy on track and charge using that. And that's another benefit of our cars not having massive batteries as well. We don't need as much, but Extreme E are racing in the desert and in the Arctic, etc. I have no idea where they would get their power from. So we need completely different solutions.
Cool, makes a lot of sense. What's your biggest challenge been so far with the ERA Championship?
I think the biggest challenge is is to do with making the car affordable. I mean, affordability is a difficult topic when you're talking about motorsport to non-motorsport people, because everything in motorsport sounds very, very expensive. But that's the nature of the beast, really. But we worked really hard to make sure that the car was affordable and therefore accessible. And you can buy the sports class fully running. You know, it drives from the get-go for around 130,000 euros, which I guess when you think of it compared to road cars might sound like a lot, but in the scheme of things in motorsport, it's incredibly affordable, incredibly. And electric cars, of course, have got less mechanical maintenance as well. So you are probably on over 2-3 years going to spend quite a bit less than you would with a comparable combustion series car. So that was really a big challenge, because as we know, the components in an electric car are expensive, and I mean, things are getting cheaper now as the market is developing, but it's, you know, the battery and the motor and stuff is not cheap. So we had to kind of work to make that happen, as well as design our own sub chassis to fit everything in. So yeah, I would say that was the biggest challenge.
Awesome. And I've always said to people, you know, certainly the diehard petrol fans, that, you know, if you want petrol, you know, you'll always have racing in motorsport with petrol. And compared to like horse racing, you always say, well, you know, we don't drive around on horses anymore, but you can go and watch horse racing if you want. Do you think that actually will continue with petrol, or do you think actually the benefits with EVs in motorsport will mean that people just think, well, what's the point? I might as well drive an EV around a track instead.
Yeah, I'm a little bit in two minds with that, because on one hand, I think if people want to celebrate the automotive heritage of combustion cars, then probably doing it on a track away from cities and away from other humans breathing in the fumes, etc., is exactly the right place to do it in the future where we're not driving them on the roads. So part of me says yes. I think motorsport is exactly the right place for combustion vehicles. However, from a business perspective, a lot of these teams and a lot of the sponsors, etc., that are to do with the industry are getting involved with motorsport because they are developing tech in motorsport. So if the tech is obsolete, if that tech is not on the road anymore, if combustion cars are not being sold, then it would be difficult for them to justify developing some cutting edge combustion car technology if they weren't going to filter it down into their road cars. So I guess it's difficult to say. I think maybe historic racing would be really, really great. Old cars, it would be a really good place for people to have fun with them. But from my personal opinion, I think that in terms of business and industry relevancy, if the industry is going electric, then it makes sense that motorsport needs to lead the way.
Awesome. So touching on that, how can we convince Motorsport UK that production cars such as the Tesla and primarily the Model 3 are safe to use in grassroots motorsport without clubs and competitors having to jump through so many hoops to get there?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the last time I had contact with MS UK, they were aware that it was something they needed to consider and to find a solution for. So that was a better place than maybe a few years ago when it was just a no. But that was a little while ago now, so I don't know how things have developed since kind of everything's happened over the last year. I think the biggest thing is that the tracks will need to have the correct education with what differences there are when dealing with electric car versus combustion car in terms of safety. And I think it's difficult for some circuits to have both at the same time. And I mean, in motorsport, it's impossible to have both at the same time, because it's just it's very dangerous for the track marshals involved to not know whether they're dealing with a combustion thing or an electric thing. But I think if we keep kind of putting pressure on MSUK, and by pressure I mean kind of positive pressure, like, you know, if you do this, we will turn up, and that makes you money kind of pressure. Then I think it will happen. We were looking at doing an ERA race in the UK actually. I don't know. I don't know now whether that's still going to be possible anytime soon, but we would still really like to do that. It's a little bit difficult because of everything that's happened in the last year, and obviously for European teams, the issue as well now that we've moved a year back is Brexit, because they would need to have visas, and if they're carrying a lot of spare parts, etc., it's a bit of a problem to bring that into the UK and account for all of those parts through customs, etc. But it was something that we're keen to do, and I believe that British Motorsport were quite keen to have us. So I guess if we start having electric motorsport series as taking place in the UK, then the road cars will be welcome.
Yeah, and I think from everyone watching, I think a big plea for please do it, because you know you'll have the support of Tesla Owners UK in that. So yeah, we'd love to see it. So yeah, I appreciate it's not an easy decision, but yeah, the more the merrier.
I'm really pushing for it, but I'm like the one British person on the team. So, but no, I mean, there's no crowd like the British Motorsport crowd. The German crowd and the Italian crowd are also really great, but the UK is the home of motorsport for me, and I think for a lot of people. So it's really important for us, and we have been looking into it, but it's just logistically what we can make happen. There's a few more additional hurdles now that we need to we need to even research to understand what the implications are. So, but it's something we're keen to do, and maybe in the future there will be a purely UK ERA championship, because how it works is we're not ever going to go around the globe like Formula E does, because again that's way too expensive for our teams and doesn't make sense. So we will have multiple regional championships taking place around the world. So obviously as I mentioned, we're running our driver program over in the US, in California and Nevada, but also we're looking at running a series in Japan in the future, because our car is obviously built. The chassis is a dome chassis, so we've got quite a big Japanese fan base, and Japanese motorsport's incredible. So they're really a great place for us to consider. So yeah, the UK is a real possibility, and there's a lot of young drivers in the UK and a lot of racing teams. So it would be an easy market, I think, to find appetite for.
Awesome. So after we talked about your music, there's been so many comments about music. One here from Ellis Spizia, I think his name is.
Yes, Ellis is one of our racing drivers.
Oh, okay. Will Beth make me a mix to listen to whilst sim practicing for ERA?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Have you made any EV style music? Is that even a possibility? Because we've got a big Spotify playlist of all.
You know what? I started working on. At the moment I'm working on a project that's probably not really car listenable. I mean, everything's car listenable, but not really racing listenable, because it's quite an ambient project. But I have been looking into using race statistics in music production, and I won't say too much because it will get really painfully nerdy and we're not, this is not a music chat, so most people won't understand what I'm talking about. But yeah, it is inspiring, and I do sample a lot of random sounds to make beats in my music, and there's probably definitely some car mechanical sounds and motor sounds that I use in my music.
Yeah, we think we must have a Model S drivetrain. You must be able to tweak that.
I think electric cars sound incredible. I mean, okay, some of them sound dreadful. There are a few on the market that sound dreadful, but I love the motor sound. And the ERA car, when we drive in the rain, it sounds like a jet engine, because you hear a lot of sounds that you don't normally hear in a combustion car they're blocked out by the engine noise. So you get to hear kind of all the components working together. I love the sound of electric cars, and it's really annoying because you always have to have the noise debate with the combustion car fans, like, oh yeah, but the noise. But actually, when I think about it, I've spent so many times at especially 24-hour races, endurance races like Spa or Le Mans, and you think, oh, it would actually be kind of nice to be able to talk to my friends that I came here with, or to talk to my colleagues rather than sit here with earplugs in for 24 hours. So yeah, I mean, I'm probably not going to impress many motorsport people with those opinions, but I think electric cars sound great, and they are more sociable if you go and watch a long race and allow you to talk to people.
Okay, last question about music. What saxophone track does Beth like listening to best in her Model S?
Oh, what saxophone track? That's I think probably The Man with the Red Face by Laurent Garnier. I may not be pronouncing his name correctly, but it's a kind of a legend. Probably a lot of you will know it, but it's like a legendary techno collaboration with a jazz saxophonist, and it's basically like a 5-minute saxophone improvisation over electronic music, and it's go listen to it. You'll probably know it because I think the radio plays it a lot, but it's an epic fusion of two genres that I love. So
awesome. We'll have to put that on our Spotify groups playlist.
Yeah, The Man with the Red Face. It's a good one.
Okay, awesome. What's your thoughts on the impact for Europe of Gigafactory 4 opening in July this year?
Well, I know that we're all very excited. That's probably as far as I know with the impact on Europe. I mean, I think it's great that we're having so much production here, and it's really exciting to see that whenever this news comes out, the amount of people that are really positive about it, and the amount of jobs that it's creating in the region is really important. So I mean, I have nothing but positive things to say about it, but I guess I'm not really an interesting voice on the subject. I mean, it's great. Progress is progress, right?
Awesome. Someone's asking, do you still have your Roadster, and if you do you drive it on a track still? Well,
yeah, as I said earlier, I don't drive Roadsters really anymore because I have this long-term shoulder injury, which is partly because of my crazy Nordcap trip, and it's also exacerbated by being a violinist. So I don't really do it anymore. That Roadster is actually part of a business fleet, so it's back with its fleet now, and my daily drive is my Model S, which is much more comfortable if you have a shoulder injury. But I love the Roadster. I would definitely do something fun with it on a track. If my shoulder wasn't going to give me months of pain afterwards. If anyone's a really good physio, then I'll do it.
Or presumably, if anyone's a really good car mechanic that can put in a power steering into it.
Yeah, but that would be awful. You know what? The thing is that my biggest complaint about my Model S is that even sports steering setting, which is the one I have it on permanently, is too assisted. And I complain about assisted steering, and I really hate overly assisted steering. And obviously, I mean, American cars are very assisted anyway, and I would much rather have no power steering and struggle. And probably, I think in that respect, I found the Roadster ridiculously comfortable in a way, because I love a car that really feels like a load of effort to drive. But unfortunately, I need to look after my violinist arms. So there's some things I try and avoid doing, like playing tennis and Roadster driving, unfortunately. But I did drive to fully charged in the Roadster, which was from Belgium. So that was I think twice. So that was a fairly long drive. But my commute before COVID was often between the UK and Belgium, and I used to travel between the two countries maybe once or twice a month. So my daily drive needed to have decent range. So the Model S was the best option for that, really.
Awesome. Well, we found you a massage therapist. Oz's wife is a massage therapist who has helped people on track and after racing. So there you go.
Oh,
We've solved that problem.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're coming up to the last couple of questions. So if anyone else has got a dying question, please chuck that in the comments and we'll ask. But I'm just going through now. Going back to your sort of family life and friends and family, how have they sort of thought about this whole EV thing? Have they been supportive? Have they thought this is a weird fad? You know, what's going on? So maybe some insights into that.
Nobody's thought it's a weird fad, but I guess my friends and family know me well enough that I'm one of those people that if I make a decision on something, then it's final, which can be probably really annoying to them, but I think in other ways it can be a really good quality. Like, you know, as a 7-year-old, I decided I was never going to eat meat again once I figured out that meat was also animals. So there's been a lot of kind of lifestyle, early adopting decisions that I've made. So I guess it came as no surprise to people early on. I do tend to nag people about driving combustion cars a lot for obvious reasons, but my mum has said that her next car will be electric, but it needs to be the brand that she currently drives, which unfortunately isn't Tesla because she drives a Kia. But now Kia have some electric cars, so I'll be pushing for that to happen. My mum wouldn't get on with the Tesla anyway because I think it would be too big for her. But yeah, I think in general they're pretty positive. I'm lucky to have a supportive mum who puts up with my weirdness, I guess. And the fun thing is, like, there's been a few times where I creep up on her in the car when she can't hear it, and it's really entertaining. I'm quite an evil child.
So, yeah, the Kia Niro is awesome.
I've been encouraging her for that. So I think once, I mean, and I agree with her in a sense. Like, she's not ready to give up her car yet because its time isn't up yet, and that's absolutely fair enough. And obviously, when she's ready, then I will be there to support it and to make sure that she gets a charger installed and all of those things. So yeah, it's great. And I know a lot of people that have been influenced by my craziness to get their own EVs, and there's neighbors on the street that have got EVs. And I like to think that my kind of extreme lifestyle with my EV has helped them overcome any fear, because if anybody comes to me with the oh yes, but I have to drive to Scotland to visit my grandma once every year, so I can't have an EV, and then I tell them that I commute between the UK and Belgium, or did commute between the UK and Belgium, it really quickly ends that conversation. So I have that up my sleeve, and I'm quite persuasive.
Because how many miles did you used to drive per year?
Miles, I don't know. It was about 100,000 kilometers, so probably 60, 70,000 miles. It was stupid amounts, a lot. But
because that Model S that you had, I don't know if it's the same one. It was in the top.
The same one.
No, it's not the same. But that back in the day still had like one of the highest kilometers.
Yeah, I'm on that. I don't know if it still exists, but the Tesla high mileage leaderboard. That was briefly me. I was in the top 20. I drove a Model S, and I can't remember why, but I drove a Model S with 900,000 kilometers on the clock, or nearly 1 million kilometers on the clock. I drove it just because it had that much mileage on the clock, and it was obviously an ex-taxi. I think it was at my local service center or my local body shop or something, and that I had a day with that, and that was cool because, wow. You know, it was still great. I had about 85% battery still remaining. So, I was impressed. But yeah, that Tesla was on a high mileage leaderboard, but I have a different one now. I have a 2015 Model S now. So still an oldie, because for the journey I do, obviously, the unlimited supercharging is, I think the car paid for itself in 2.5 years. It is literally the cheapest car you could own if you do that level of mileage. I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, and you know, it's embarrassing when people say, oh, you know, but EVs are so expensive, and you're like, yeah, okay, I can't really, no, it's not like my daily drive is a Leaf or a Zoe, so I can't argue with you there. But if you had an equivalent car and we're doing this mileage, there's nothing cheaper you could have.
Yeah, for sure. So going away from Tesla, favorite non-Tesla EV other than the i3?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I'm guessing I'm not allowed to say Rimac or something. I mean, I haven't driven one. I think it's really rude.
I think you're allowed to say it.
One. But yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's good. But I don't. But you know, you shouldn't make assumptions. It could be really terrible, but just looks really great.
It might have a very American steering.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if it's got overly assisted steering, then I'm not interested. So I think the Hyundai Kona is great. I really like that car. My colleague has a Porsche Taycan, which I'm immensely jealous of because it's super cool. But he has the function where it makes the fake engine noises, which loses instant cool points. It sounds absolutely dreadful. Well, it's so dreadful.
It needs a Beth audio tune, and that's actually Tom has said. Actually, he wants a Model X dance remix made.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Because with the Model 3 now, you can add in the custom tunes for the horn, right?
Yes.
So you must be able to. We haven't got it in Europe yet, but it's got to be about coming soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, because I mean, I think I would want a Model 3 eventually when it's time to say goodbye to the Model S. But you know, yeah, it's the pull of the unlimited supercharging. But I mean, realistically, the S is massive, and I don't feel like I need the massiveness of the, although we use it a lot for kind of as a mule at work as well. So the massiveness is useful, but yeah, there's a lot of cool things on the Model 3, and I really like the performance function, especially as I end up putting the Tesla on track quite a lot to chase the race car around as a kind of support vehicle.
Awesome. Last question. We've come a long way with EV adoption, but what challenges do you think EV adoption still has?
There's a lot, and a lot of it is normally stupid, unfounded things. From a kind of logistical perspective, from an industry perspective, I suppose the automotive industry is going through a big change. So there's always going to be challenges there. The big brands that are not Tesla, are not pure EV companies, are obviously going through an identity crisis, as we've seen with VW, with Toyota is still having an ongoing identity crisis. I'm assuming they've got some kind of long-term sensible plan. I hope they do. They must do. But we've seen them being slow to adapt. We saw it with the likes of Audi. Obviously, BMW were fairly early there, but you know they're companies that have got 100 years of combustion car plus heritage, and yeah, it's a struggle for them. And to source all the materials, there's shortages of certain parts that go into electric cars in the industry. Just purely due to the fact that demand is increasing so quickly. So there's really a lot of logistical things. But when it comes to the public adoption, it's basically what I've learned is that people are really scared of change, except for probably everybody in this chat, because probably everyone in this chat is an early adopter and is embracing change. But there's so many people that give minor convenience excuses as to why they could never own an electric vehicle, and it's the nature of humans as kind of creatures of habit and routine, isn't it? And unfortunately, a lot of the old school motoring journalists and motoring media, they also feel threatened and potentially redundant by not having all the knowledge about electric cars, so they're not going to maybe necessarily write the most favorable things about electric cars. So Yeah, there's various hurdles at all different levels, but I think as we know, and as Will and everybody involved with Tesla Owners Club from a kind of organizational point of view will know, the biggest thing we can do really to encourage adoption is getting people in the cars and experiencing them. So that's all we can do really. That and tweet a lot.
Awesome, perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight, Beth. We've had loads of people sort of thanking you in the chat as well. So a big appreciation for everything you do, and you're a big inspiration for lots of people. So keep doing what you're doing, because it's awesome, and we fully support you as a country. So yeah, we want to see more ERA championship and more. I think also more females, at the forefront of electric vehicles, because it's awesome, and we want to see more of that. So thank you. Thank you to everyone that's been watching along at home. Another shout out to subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Twitter, and also follow Beth on Twitter as well if you want to hear more. We've also obviously put up the ERA Championship website throughout, so if you're interested in even putting a team together or just watching along or whatever, then the website's on there as well. So a big thank you from everyone here, and a big thank you to everyone watching, and we'll see you soon. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, Beth. Thanks.